Hi there, and welcome back into my task management application creation tutorial series. I'm Grigory from Dataplicity, and today I have a surprise for you. Previously announced the video about front-end creation in the VueJS, but I prepared so much material about it, so it will be enough for 2 tutorial videos. I'm very excited to share with you that knowledge, so guys, let's start coding. And that is how our final result will look like. For our project, we need the Node.js installed. If you don't have it, just download it and install from the official page. Next is the command prompt. Let's initialize the new Vue project. We need to specify project name and after that answer to several questions about project specification. Answer no for everyone except the question about Pinia. We will use that library for state management. Our project is created now. As it's suggested here, let's go to the project directory and let's write npm install to install all needed libraries. And now we can run our server. Let's go to localhost 5173 and we can see that our application working. Our server has been started. So now let's clean up our project because Vue by default generates a lot of unnecessary files. Let's go to src folder. Let's go to components folder. And here, let's delete all the components files. After that, let's open app.vue file, the main file of our application, and literally clean up the top. Also inside assets folder, let's open the main CSS file and let's delete everything from that file except the first line, import of base CSS. Without that line, it will be some errors in our project. Also, we don't need that logo file. Also, we don't need that icons folder. And inside the SRC components, let's create our first component. Let's name it login register page.view. And it will be page with login and registration forms. Let's create our forms inside the template tag. It will need input of type text for our username and another input of type password for our password. Also, let's add here the submit button. And also we will need here div with info. In that div, it will be shown information about login status. So for example, if we cannot log in because our password is wrong, information about it will be shown in that div. So same with the registration form. But here we also need to add another password field, the password confirmation. Our HTML template has been created. And now let's add it to our main application file. Inside of the script tags, we are writing the JavaScript code. So let's import here our login register page component from the class that's relative to our main application file. And here in the template stack, let's add our element. But the thing I forgot here to add is to initialize our element. So for that, we need to add the export default field inside of which we will add an components field. Inside of that components, we will add imported component. Good. Now we can check and we can see our page with the login and register forms. Maybe one more thing to correct here is to give a names for our submit buttons. So let's just add value parameter for them. Good. Now we have buttons with items, login and sign up. Let's add also style scope. Inside that, we can add the CSS code that will be responsible for our style and design of our application. And let's add tag for our app. The tag will be responsible for whole our app, every page of that. And here, let's add the background color. So color we will specify here will be available for all the pages, all the components. Good. Now let's add some logic to our login register page. Let's make our application to recognize what we are writing to the username and password fields. First, we need to import Axios library. That library will allow us request our API. Inside of the export default, we need to create data field. And inside of that, let's specify several string variables. First of them will be username login. And that variable will be responsible for content inside of the username field in our login form. Same username password will be responsible for password. Message login will be field for our message. And also username register will be string for our username inside of the register form. Password register is password for register form, and so on. And to link our form fields with our variables, let's use the vModel keyword. We need to place it inside of our template fields. And to show our message, we need to put it inside two curly braces. Oh, okay. We need to install our Axios library. Just use npm install Axios. We can install Vue developer tools to our browser, and inside of that we can see our variables. Let's write something to our forms, and we can see that our variables also change. So our fields are successfully tied up with our variables. Next, let's create our registration logic. We'll create the first method that will be communicating with our API. Inside of the method's property, let's create a function async register. The word async means that it will be asynchronic function. We will need to write it if we have function that will, for example, in our case, connect to some external resource. And we don't know exactly how much time we will need to get our response back. So that's why we need to do it asynchronically. Inside of the try statement, let's make the request using the Axios library. It will be post request to our API URL. Let's copy there our workflow link. And in the end of that link, we need, if you remember from first tutorial, add the aus register pass. Good. Also, obviously, we need to specify body of the post request. Body of the request will be JSON with username, password, and second password parameters. And values of that fields will be taken from our fields in the registration form. Good. After that, let's return the message that our user was created. Also, to be sure, let's empty the login form fields for case we forgot in that another form some data. And let's move that lines with cleaning data outside of our try catch statement. But in case if we have some error, for example, there is no such user there or no such password, we need to show a response of our server in the message field. Also, let's make that function called after the submitting the registration form. By the way, we don't need to have any response inside the try statement. And I found the error here. Obviously, there was the bad variable name. This variable should be named as password login. And now we can test our registration form. Let's try to create some new user. Okay, forgot about it, some another error. The reason was that I pasted here the wrong server URL. And now it should work. And we can see that our user have been created. Now we have created our first function that communicating with our API that we created in the first part of tutorial. Now I will show you how to use Pinia storage. During using our application, we will need to have access to some variables inside of many different components in our application. When our application will grow bigger and bigger, it will be harder to control data flows if we have no one centralized storage. So Pinia allows us in easy way to access from every component any variable or function we will create inside Pinia storage. So first of all, let's create an Pinia storage. In fact, it's already created, but we will rename it and change it a little bit. Let's name it main storage, I mean main.js. And let's name the storage function use main store. And in our case, you have our base URL that we will need to use in every component of our application. So to not retype that in every component and make it easily changeable, let's just define it once in the Pinia store. Let's delete that variables and function created here. And let's create our base URL variable inside of the state field. State field is used for storing the variables or constants. In our login register page.vue, we need to import our storage, our use main store variable, and inside of setup method, we need to set up our storage. Good. To access variables from our store, we need just type this.store. And variable name. Let's check it now. I forgot the comma after the setup function. Let's try one more time. Haha, password is too common. Okay, but you get the point. Our application communicating with server and can get from the server some response. Next, let's add to our store two other variables that will be username and password of our user. It is also a good idea to store it globally because we will need them in almost every file of our application. Here, my dear viewers, please be very careful. The login and password that are written directly in the store could be easily stolen by the hackers. I'm assuming that we are making here just hobbyist application without any security controls. But if you create an application for the professional environment, you need to use some more complicated methods. For example, tokens generated with your API, and in that case, you just saving tokens in your store, not all the login and passwords. But now let's create the login function. The function will try to log into our user account. In fact, that function will just check if that user exists and if the password is good. Let's use the exhaust get function to try to get our server API. Our API will be our base server API plus Scrum tasks. We need to provide here authentication data. The data we will take from the username login and login fields. And after that, we need to save the data into our store. And in case of some problems, we need to write error message inside the message login field. And also after that, we need to empty our string fields. Okay, and I need to add comma after the register method. We need to make our login function activate after our form submit using the submit.prevent directive. Okay, let's try to register new user. User created. Super, let's try to log into that user. And I cannot see any problems, so it looks like application successfully logged into our user, but we cannot see that now because we have no another pages in our application. That's why let's create new component, the main page of our application. Let's name it main page.u. And for now, let's just create simple template with word hello inside. Let's import our component to the app.view file. Let's initialize the component. And here, let's add that to the template. We need to use if directive to show component if our username parameter is not empty. And for login register page, let's use the else directive to show it if our username is empty. We also need to set up our storage. Let's try to log in. And now we can see that we can successfully log into the main page of our application. Okay, now let's make our main page look better. Let's add here some functionalities. Let's create the container. And inside of that container, let's create 3 columns with our task stages. I mean the stages to do, in progress, and done. Let's put inside every of them some header. And let's add some CSS code inside the style scope. Word scope after the style means that style we are writing here will be applicable only for that concrete component, not for the whole application. Okay, for every stage, let's specify width, and let's make float left to make our columns align like a column, one beside other. Okay, it's looking not so bad. Let's add also here a top margin with value of 10 pixels. And now let's add some logic to our main page. We will create a function that will get tasks from our API. First of all, let's import Axios module that we need for making requests. Let's set up a storage. And let's create empty list with tasks. To that list, we will download our tasks in future. Okay. And let's create method getTasks. Now we will interested in the response of our request. It will get the request to our URL plus Scrum tasks with authentication data. After that, we will save inside of our task variables data with our tasks that we get from response. In case of some error, we will throw it into console. Let's call our function inside of the mounted method. That method activates every time when our component is mounted, or in easier word, every time when component is showing up. Okay, it needs to be comma, not semicolon, after the task list. And some another error. I forgot to import the store. Good. Let's try to log in now. Okay, good. We are able to log into our main page. But here another error with authentication data I see. And the reason of this that we not taking our authentication data from the store. I just copied that but forgot to change that variable's names. Okay, good. Let's try it now. Nice. We are logged in and our application trying to get data about our task. We can see it in the console. For now, our task list obviously is empty, but in future it will be able to show tasks here. Let's create the task creation form component. And with that, I hope we'll be able to fill up our task list. Let's import Axios. Also, let's import our store. Let's initialize our store. And in the data field, let's create our task parameter fields like name, description, and priority. I will not put the stage here because the stage of task we take from our parent component from the main page component using the props property of Vue. It allows us to exchange data between components. While props allow to take data from parent component, the emits property allows us to emit data to the parent component. So in our case, we'll be able to emit a refresh task signal. So when our new task is created, we'll emit signal to our main page. Hey, you need to refresh the list of tasks. It is just changed. Okay, and let's create some template. Inside of that will be form, our task creation form, inside of which we need to provide, as you can guess, data with name, with description, and with priority of our task. And also using the vModel property, we need to tie our fields with variables. To define priority of our task, we need to use select field with 3 options of low, medium, and high priorities. And let's place here also label for our priorities field. Let's import to the main page component our task creation form component. And let's initialize that component here. Also, we need to add our task creation form at the bottom of every stage. Error here. There is typo during importing store. Well, and we can see we have our task creation form here. Let's add some style to our dropdown to make it look better. And also let's make look better our buttons. The styles will be global, so we'll use them for every dropdown and for every button in our application. Button hover is property that how our button will look when we hover over it with mouse. Our form is created, it's looking good, but it's not working. We need to create the method that will connect our form with our API and allow our form to create tasks inside of our backend application. Let's create async method add task. And let's make here the post request to our API plus Scrum tasks with all the authentication data and with parameter of our task inside of the body of our request. So name, description, stage, and priority of our task. Let's catch errors. And let's emit signal to refresh our tasks. Because without emitting the signal, we will add our new task to the API database, but it will be not visible in our front-end application. And also we need to zero fields of our form. Only name and description field will be enough because we don't need to zero our chosen field. And here in the main page, let's listen to our refresh page signal and let's activate get task function if it will appears. Let's also provide here the stage of our tasks created with that form. And let's test it now. Also, we need to activate our function when form is submitted. And another time I made the same mistake, just copying code without any analyzing. Obviously, we need in the authentication data pass here username and password from the store. Now, let's try to create some task. We can see now JSON with all our tasks. Inside of it, we can see our just created task. Let's break down our video now because it's already too long and you may be tired. And let's continue it in the next episode. See you next time!